So in the recruiting and HR space, this whole subject of millennials, Gen Zers is a hot topic of discussion. It was 4.1 million articles about why millennials suck. Say they don't care about money, but it really is all about money.
Yes, we are going to move on to the next better paying job because that's how it works these days.
You guys don't show up for work.
I had work ethic instilled in me to show up on time.
Lack of loyalty.
There is no loyalty. I think things have changed, right?
I'm not sure that anything that you've said thus far is different than what I thought when I was your age. What do you think about that?
I mean, I'm not sure what you thought when you were my age. The millennial generation, technically, statistically speaking, I'm a part of that.
Yeah.
But idealistically, I don't feel that I match to what you Google and find online or how other people view. Do I think that in a broad stroke, if you're talking about the entire generation, are there some truths to what is being shared? Yes. Do I feel that I fit that mold? No.
So the stereotype may be wrong, Jen.
I think stereotypes are typically wrong. I
But-
mean, they're put
so
in
there's always a little bit of truth in every stereotype.
a
That
little,
is what people say,
Yeah,
right?
but for the most part, a stereotype. I mean, every single generation's got a stereotype,
I would
but
agree.
in a lot of what we're saying is true. I think values may be different, but I think the purpose and the thoughts and the process of everyone's, and what they're saying is all the same. Like you said, when you were this age, you thought the same thing, but I'm sure you thought differently about the generation before you. They were this, they were that.
So it's Riley. You were going to say something, and I'll make a comment. Jen, thank you for that. That actually hits that.
So in regards to like the general topic, it's all about perspective.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Riley?
So from the outside looking in, we might not necessarily be the correct panel to be talking about millennials and everything because we all feel that we break the mold of what the stereotype is. But there are obviously, like you said, there are some grains of truth to every stereotype that's out there. We do have people who are in our generation who aren't looking for work actively and being part of the workforce, who don't want to. They want everything that's handed to them.
But
which
let me make a comment on that. Do you think there's people of my generation that are in the exact same boat as that?
Oh yeah,
So is there really a big difference?
I don't think so.
Hold on. Now I got a hands popping up here. Riley, finish your thought though. If you sorry to cut you off.
So what I mean by perspective is that you have people who want to work very little for a lot.
Okay.
So they want to make, this is just going to be way off part. They want to make $4 million a year, but only have to work 20 hours a week.
And they maybe want it tomorrow.
Exactly.
But is that dream any different than the people that I grew up with?
I guess
You may not know that.
We're just more vocal about it.
Hold that thought. Hannah, you were like, man, hand goes up on this.
Well, I finally figured it out. What the biggest difference that our generation has that your generation, and that's technology. And technology
Ah.
really has just enabled us access to so much more information out there. And I think that has been a key driver. And I would say the younger generations, my generation, look as technology as a great thing. It's opening all these doors. It's providing us access to all of these things, where I know my parents look at it as like a necessary evil, and they like refuse to learn how to, DVR and little things like that. So I think the biggest difference is the technology piece. You guys didn't have what we have back then.
But I have it now. Dana, you were the other one. Like, give me that mic.
Well, it's a little short story, I guess, about technology. I was doing my math homework one night, and I have this app where it'll take a picture, it'll scan the problem that I'm doing, and
Yeah.
it'll show me the steps on how to solve it.
Yep.
And my dad was looking at it, and he goes, "I would have killed for that in college." And and so my generation of millennials too, we especially Gen Z, we've grown up on technology. We are so used to having information at our fingertips at any moment that we want. And that ties into the mentoring thing.
Sure.
Is that we're used to having help like given to us anytime we need it. And so that's something different, I think, about older generations versus younger generations is that we have access to help whenever we need it. And so it's that guidance when we don't receive that guidance, even from real people, then that's where the differences start showing up.
Flip this around for a second, because it's not something Raleigh and Hannah both said. Technology, you're talking about it from the use of technology for you. What about the use of technology to become more vocal, which is what a couple of you said?
Yes. That's another thing. There was this one article I saw in Business Insider, and Generation Z was referred to as millennials on steroids, which
I've
I
heard
thought
that.
was kind of
Oh, yeah.
funny.
Oh, yeah.
But it's so interesting to me. Almost all of my friends at some point in high school have made some sort of comment about activism or just something that they really truly believe in, be it on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, yada, yada, yada. It doesn't matter. We have so many different platforms to voice our ideas, to communicate with others, and that's just a huge thing for us is being able to communicate with others even when we aren't personally there.
So here's what some of the researchers, I've been spending some time kind of digging in on this, right? This whole idea of millennials, Gen Zers, my generation, are they really that different? And I think there's some differences based on the way you were grown up, who taught you what when in technology was introduced and so forth. But the actual drivers of individuals really haven't changed that much from generation to generation. My parents thought my generation was the laziest generation that ever came about. My generation talks about millennials saying you're the laziest generation that ever came about. And my guess is the millennials are going to talk about the Gen Zers and say you're the most entitled group that we've ever seen. It goes to, but the difference is the way in which it's communicated and how loud you can talk now because of the use of technology. The values change from generation to generation. There's no doubt about it, and that impacts this. But the actual needs from an employment perspective, when you look at these studies, they're actually very much the same from generation to generation. Now, what's cool about this panel here is that you all happen to work for the same company. You happen to work for Qualigence, which I'm a part of as well. And when I look at the stereotype, lazy, entitled, lack of loyalty, more focused on feeling than doing, worse than the hippies of the 60s and 70s. These are the comments, right, as of this morning. Again, because I checked it. Not one of you fit the stereotype. So what does that say about the stereotypes that we have about the generations?
Well, I feel like from person to person, we're all different, but as a group, a lot of us are really similar in what we value. It's all about the environment that we were raised in, where older generations, a lot of people didn't, well, I don't want to say a lot of people didn't have office jobs, but way back when
Well, it was it was industrial revolution back then. Now it's the technology.
Industrial,
Yeah, absolutely.
And people really valued hard work for hard work's sake and, being self-sufficient and making money. And we still value that. It's just about how we go about that, how loudly we talk about our opinions.
Yeah.
And it's just all about the environment.
Jeff, you were going to say something.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that. That was going to be the point I was going to make, is the types of jobs that are out there. Before previous generations, our parents and grandparents would, sometimes not even finish high school or finish high school and get right into the workforce as a teenager still, working those blue-collar jobs. And now you can't get people, they're paying people to find a trade because there's just a shortage of people who actually have a
Welders
trade.
making $140,000 a year right now.
But yeah, so they look at us as, my father's a blue collar worker, and he tells me I would go insane if I was sitting down all day long for my job. I would absolutely lose my mind. So it's just a difference of what's out there.
Anthony.
Yeah, also coming from a blue collar family and having that same experience, like my parents pushed me so hard, you have to go to college. You're not going to find yourself a decent career if you don't go to college. And I think that was something that was said to our entire generation, because now that I stepped out of college, I have a generation standing next to me that also just got out of college looking for work in a market space that is saturated with college degrees. There are not a lot of blue collar workers that are left in the field, and there's a need.
That's a really great point that we're going to save for another session because there's this whole idea of, and I'm an advocate of education, don't get me wrong, but as a predictor of success in somebody's career, we've got to challenge that a little bit. So we're going to say, great point, perfect foray into our next group that we're going to have
Sounds like
together.
I'm coming back, huh?
Yeah, you're going to have to come back, Anthony. Listen, guys, thank you for being a part of this. The whole point of this, for anybody who's watching, is, millennials are people too. Let's be careful about bashing a stereotype around millennials, around Gen Zers. It doesn't really make a difference. When it comes down to recruiting, when it comes down to human resources, we got to get to know the person. Forget about the label, forget about the stereotype, forget about everything else, because there's more similarities than there are differences. Yet, there are some differences, as Dana and Hannah and everybody else pointed out, that are innate to who we are based upon how we grew up. Make sure you guys come back in a couple of weeks. We'll be talking about this whole idea of college and where that takes us in the job market, the value, perceived value, and reality of it. Stay tuned for next time.